Chess. I guess I could begin by saying something about what the game was. So I think I would have to choose chess for the reason that I think chess is probably the best known board game in the world. It's a game for two players, and the aim is to defeat the other players by taking his or her pieces and chopping his king. This final move is called checkmate. Going on to my next point, which is where I played it. I really need to add that it was a classmate of mine at primary school who first taught me to play chess. He had a small portable chess set. Once I knew how it moved, once I knew how it moved, it beat, once I knew how each piece moved, we started playing it at break at lunch times. We played in our classroom or outside in on the school playground. Later, my parents bought me my own chess set so that I could play at home. And now, with reference to who played this game with me, the point I want to make is that I taught my younger brother to play, and at some point I joined. The school chess club. There I had chance to hone my skills against some of the older pupils. I was 7 or 8, and in my final year, I made it onto the school team. There were 5 us. We start we competed against children from other primary schools in the same town. And in conclusion, if I have time to answer the question of why I liked play it, really I should mention that I enjoyed the challenge of thinking ahead and trying to outwit opponent. I was 7 or 8 years old when I started playing. It seemed like a very mysterious and intellectual game at that time. Also, although I loved winning, chess taught me to learn from my losers and to congratulate the person who had beaten me, the person you admire. I guess I could begin by saying something about who the person is. So I think I would have to choose my father for the reason that he has been a major influence in my life. And now, with reference to going on to my next point, which is what he is like. I really need to add that he was always a good role model for me as I was growing up. He's hardworking, patient, and understanding. He's also got a good sense of humor and seems to get on well with everybody. And now, with reference to why I admire him, the point I want to make is that I think he brought me and my brothers up well. He was quite strict but always fair. He has always been someone I can turn to for advice. He set a good example by working hard and having a positive outlook on life. I remember that he used to leave for work early and come home quite late, but he always made time for me and my brothers. Pigeon. I guess I could begin by saying something about what the animal is and what it looks like. So I think I would have to choose the pigeon, which is a wild bird that is common in Vietnam. The pigeon is a small bird with brown and white feathers. The area of red color makes pigeons very, very easy to distinguish from the other birds. Going on to my next point, which is where it lives. I really need to add that pigeons are common garden birds. Many houses in Vietnam have a garden, and you can often see this bird sitting in a tree. They make their nests in trees and go looking for food. You might also see a pigeon when you go for a walk in the countryside or in a park. And now, with reference to how people in my country feel about this animal, the point I want to make here is that pigeons, they have a special place in Vietnamese culture. They are considered to be Christmas birds and are often used on Christmas cards. Many people in Vietnam leave food in their gardens for pigeons and other small birds to eat. Lego car. I guess I could begin by saying something about when I got it. So I think I would have to choose a Lego car. It was a birthday present from my parents. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I was probably about 10 or 11. Going on to my next point, which is what it looked like. I really need to add that the special thing of this car was that I had to build it myself out of hundreds of pieces of Lego. The pieces came in a box with a picture of the finished car on the front. I had to follow step by step instructions to put all the pieces together in the correct way. This wasn't an easy task because this car even had an engine, movable seats, and gears. It took me a day or two to make and required a lot of concentration. And now, with reference to how I played with it, the point I want to make here is that when this car was finished, it looked great. I felt a sense of accomplishment. I seem to remember that I didn't play with it very much. The fun part had been the process of building it. Interesting lesson. I guess I could begin by saying something about where I attended this lesson. So I think I would have to choose secondary school when I was 14 or 15 years old. Going on to my next point, which is what it was about. I really need to add that it was quite a long time ago, so I can't remember every detail. But the lesson was about the respiration. We learned about how the lungs work, how we breathe, and how oxygen passes into the blood. The science teacher talked to us about the effect of smoking on the lungs. And now, with reference to why I think why I felt it interesting, the point I want to make here is that my science teacher, Dr. Smith, always introduced new topics by showing us a video. We watched a short film about how respiration works, and I found this much easier to understand than a science textbook. The film showed diagrams of the lungs to explain the breathing process. Later in the lesson, we saw real photos of healthy lungs and lungs that had been damaged as a result of smoking. They had turned black. I think the image of smokers' lungs is the reason why I remember this lesson. Interesting advertisement. I'm going to talk about an advertisement for Coca Cola, which is one of the biggest brands in the world. Alright, then, in response to the first question of where I saw it, so I think I would have to choose poster and TV commercial. I have seen Coca Cola advertised everywhere. Going on to my going on to my next point, which is going on to my next point, which is what it looks like. I really need to add that the advert shows a picture of Santa Claus smiling and holding a bottle of Coke. I think the aim is to target children and associate the brand with Christmas time. And now, with reference to why I found it interesting, the point I want to make here is that the company is trying to influence and attract children. The marketers are trying to capture young customers. They are presenting the drink as something special, a gift for Christmas. However, Coca Cola is not necessarily a healthy drink for children. They, it contains a lot of sugar. And maybe this kind of advertising manipulates children and encourages them to pester their parents. Driving. I guess I could begin by saying something about what the skill is. So I think I would have to choose a practice skill that I use almost every day. Going on to my next point, which is how I learned it. I really need to add that I learned to drive a car by taking lessons. When I was 17, my parents paid for me to have lessons with a professional driving instructor. I learned to drive by practicing. First, I had to get used to steering, changing gears, and using the mirrors. Then I practiced things like reversing, parking. Vậy